Okay, well, I'll go ahead with the recording. I'll get started and then I'll send out the link to everyone. So any updates or conversation that's had can be viewed at a later date for anyone unable to make it. But today's office hour is focused on shared use in commercial kitchens. We have a panel of experts in different areas related to this topic. And so hopefully we'll have some discussion that will be useful for those of you on the call and those of you hopefully watching the recording in the future. To start, wanted to go over, just touch on the email that was sent yesterday, the funding update for the program that came from the USDA. So we received a notice last Friday that the program was officially cleared to continue. It passed the departmental review process, whatever is going on in the federal government. So that was really exciting. There is, in the memo that they shared, an accelerated timeline for both the equipment only and infrastructure grant tracks. They're asking that as many equipment only projects as possible get completed by December of this year, 2025, and infrastructure projects by December of next year, 2026. And that any projects that feel those timelines are not possible, that they communicate with Chad and I as soon as possible, so then we can then work with you to get some sort of extension approval from the USDA. Also wanted to remind everyone that the first period of performance ends tomorrow, May 15th. And so anytime between tomorrow and June 15th, you'll need to submit your first progress report. And that template was shared in an email. It's also posted on the website. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you fill that out. But no matter where your project progress is at, even if you haven't yet spent a dime, the report will be required because it's required that we, as the state recipient of the RFSI funding, complete a report to send to the USDA on the progress of all of our projects. Those were all of the updates that I had to share at the start of the meeting. Sherry, Danielle, or Andrew, did you have any questions that you wanted to discuss not related to the shared use kitchen conversation?
Not here. I'm just, yeah.
Okay.
Just want to hear what Mary Pat and has to say.
Awesome.
Smooth sailing over here too.
Great. Cool. Okay. Well, I guess, did we want to go ahead and do some quick introductions? Like maybe Danielle, since I know that you're in, well, and Andrew too, and sort of Sherry as well. You're all kind of involved in kitchen related projects. Did you want to kind of give an overview of your projects so that the panelists get a bit of understanding on what you're working on?
Yeah, we can do that. I can hop in if you want. All right. I'm Danielle Envik, so I'm working for Wisconsin Farmers Union. If you haven't been following the news cycle, I actually we announced yesterday that I'm the new executive director of Wisconsin Farmers Union starting here later this week. So exciting times over here. But I have been helping we have a big project in Chippewa Falls where we've got a food hall project, but a corner of our space will be a commercial kitchen that is used for the overall project. Trying to give you the whole picture. All right. 45,000 square foot historical building right on Riverfront Park in downtown Chippewa Falls. So we have a food hall, educational event space. We have, different groups meeting and gathering here. We have vendor markets that we're holding. So our portion that is actually targeted to RFSI is a commercial kitchen that'll be in the corner of the building. It's not huge. We're pretty new in the venture, so trying to soak up any knowledge that we can, but really trying to create space where our farmers can have value-added products being created and then marketed into the vendor events that we're hosting and sold to restaurants here in the space too. So really excited. Slightly out of our depth. Shh, don't listen, DATCAP. It's okay. We've got it under control, but really excited to learn from others who have a lot of working knowledge of what can go right and what can go wrong in the shared kitchen space. I'll pass it along to whoever's next.
Andrew, did you want to introduce kind of what you guys are working on?
Oh, for certain. We have our project called the Food Shed Partnership, which is organized with Community Action Coalition, REAP Food Group, Fair Share CSA, and then our for-profit business partner, Pasture and Plenty, which will be the one operating and coordinating the build-out of the production kitchen space. We're looking at focusing on fruit and vegetable products and crops organized and grown by marginalized vendors, and looking to then access and organize wholesale readiness through this shared production kitchen space, as well as then warehouse with cross-docking, cold storage, and then dry storage capacity. So we're looking to learn about how to effectively use and then communicate the facilities and infrastructure that we're bringing up online, and then looking at those barriers of entries and pinch points for vendors to have access to wholesale markets or to get them to the other side of where they want to be with their end product and end values. But we're excited to kind of mix this modality of nonprofit and then for-profit business ventures to bring a focus on food security, as well as then kind of value-added product with Wisconsin grown goods. And then we're located in Dane County.
Awesome, thank you. Sherry, anything that you wanted to share?
Just to put in context for why I'm here. So Seasonal Harvest is a regional aggregator. We're in Green Bay, and we work with about 30 farms in Northeast Wisconsin, and we sell into the wholesale market here. So predominantly school districts, the large sports team that shall not be named, and we do some work with local pantries, but we have a fairly large distribution of minimally processed fruits and vegetables. So we have two newish kitchens, one that started last fall and one that's under construction with RFSI from two of our producers. And we're just trying to navigate. It's more about getting help to come into the kitchen and about the serve safe requirements. And if anybody comes in, we've toyed with the idea for one of the kitchens that if farms have excess product, say they got, tons of zucchini and wanted to do spiralized zucchini and sell that at their on-farm stores, how is the best way to go about something like that? Is it better to have the processor who owns that kitchen space and is licensed do it for them and just charge them for processing? Can you bring people in? So just like a refresh really on how this works when you may want to bring other people in to your kitchen environment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we'll start there maybe in the conversation with guests in a moment. And did you want to share about Farm Shed's kitchen project? And then I'll open it up to any of the other grantees that wanted to share.
Sure. So Central River's Farm Shed is, sorry y'all, my brain is not working quite right this morning yet. So we are a licensed commercial kitchen. We have shared space where users are able to come in and make their own products, but then we are also a co-packer. We are one of the only licensed commercial kitchen in the area that has availability. And we are actually open 24/7. So any user who would like to use the kitchen, they can do it when they are available versus coming in like normal business hours. We are currently in 800 square foot kitchen, which is really tiny, but our new facility will be approximately 3,200. I think Chad was here a couple of weeks ago, so he's seen, I don't know if he saw our current facility, but we will have new equipment in there that will make processing easy. Right now, we are currently doing minimally processed produce for farmers who are adding that stuff into their CSA boxes, which is great because we don't require a minimum amounts of products in order for us to process for anyone. And then we also encourage food entrepreneurs to use our facilities so that they can grow their business, especially like I use this example all the time. At our new facility, we'll have this great area right outside the kitchen. So if anyone who's interested in like starting a restaurant or a food truck, I encourage them to rent out our space, test out their recipes, have a pop-up type style kitchen or restaurant so that they can figure out like, hey, is this like something that will go well with the community, well not, instead of investing like $50,000-$60,000 in starting up a restaurant and hope that it goes well. And then we also do processing for any for like food security programs. We are partnering up with Food and Farm Exploration Center in Plover. They have educational fields. They will donate their food to us. We donate everything fresh to local pantries. Anything that is remaining, we get that processed and packaged, and then usually throughout the winter months, we then distribute those to local pantries, so that we are reducing food waste and that we can continue to feed the communities in need.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. And I don't know if you said it, but that project is in Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
Correct. Yep.
Was there anyone else on the call? I think I captured all of the grantees present who are working on shared use kitchen specifically, but I'll open it up to anyone else who wants to share about their projects before we get going. Okay, awesome. So I was going to introduce our guests, but I think it would be best if I just let them introduce themselves. We have Mary Pat, Haley, Dan, and Nicole here with us. And I would just ask that you, I don't know, kind of go around, introduce yourself, what organization you're coming to us from, and kind of what your connection is to the topic of the day. And then I'm also going to put in a DACCAP legal disclaimer in the chat that essentially says any information that's said here is not ours, that they're not representing DACCAP. Okay, awesome. Haley, do you want to start?
Sure. So yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Haley Edmondson. I am with the Food Corridor. And if you haven't heard of the Food Corridor, we basically work specifically with shared kitchen projects all across the country through not only our software. So like if you have a kitchen that you're operating and you have a small team and it's a little bit too much for you and you need, something to help you manage scheduling and client management and billing and things like that. We right now work with 450 kitchens across the country, supporting them in that way. But over the years, we've been around for about a decade. We have built a lot of resources and a community of shared kitchen operators that are a really great resource to lean into. So I've been with the Food Corridor for 5 years and worked actually as an AmeriCorps member at a shared kitchen in Maryland for a couple of years before that. So I've been in the shared kitchen space for a number of years now, and I'm happy to share all the free resources that we have for kitchens at all stages. So I'm sure I can plug it in the chat or talk about specific ones, but that's me.
Awesome, thank you. And you mentioned the software. I put a link to that in the chat if anyone's interested in learning more about that. Dan, would you like to go next?
Sure, I'd love to go next. Thank you very much. It's well, first let me start off. I'm not speaking for DATCAP today, so just disclosures abound. I am, however, speaking for the Network for Health Technology and Innovation, and so we are a state-focused and national organization that works with entrepreneurs. And so I found my way here because some conversation that we started with UW Extension, some products we're working on with the Latino Chamber. And predominantly, we do a lot of work with communities that face socioeconomic challenges and entrepreneurship. And so part of what we have said is, hey, how can we better engage shared commercial kitchens and working with entrepreneurs to not just do like food carts and smaller food initiatives, but how do we maybe look to build scalable, investable enterprises that can take a Wisconsin product and put it into California and have it led by a small entrepreneur or an emerging entrepreneur that's using some shared commercial space. So we have, in the last year and a half, worked with 122 companies. About a fifth of those companies have been food-related companies. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and to be a resource and to support the projects and the stakeholders on the call here today. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Nicole?
Yes, I'm Nicole Abbott. I work at Wisconsin DATCAP. I'm a licensing specialist for the Food Bureau program. So if you're interested in getting licensed, whether it's retail or food processing, or even dairy warehousing and meat, I can help you get the right resources to get licensed. I also do retail food reviews and answer questions, anything about licensing and the requirements for that.
Excellent. And finally, Mary Pat.
Good morning. I'm having a little issues. I keep dropping out here, but I've been working with a shared use.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mary Pat. Would you mind? Maybe we could try turning off your camera because you're cutting out. Can we try that one more time?
30 years. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I was saying I started the first shared use kitchen, one of the first ones in the state of Wisconsin, in Algoma, about 800 square foot kitchen, fair amount of storage space around it, but not that much. And 248 businesses started out of that kitchen, everything from farmers to small scale processors, catering, value-added products being developed. And since that time, I've helped about, I'm just looking at my numbers here, 28 communities in the state of Wisconsin start or enhance their shared use kitchens. And I was supposed to retire 6 years ago, but I'm still at it. And right now we're just finished doing some tribal kitchens for tribal groups in Wisconsin, and USDA funded and UW Extension supported. But I do private consulting and work with small businesses, work with communities, church groups, anyone that wants to either start a kitchen, have help with their design, layout, technical support, licensing. I work closely with DATCAP over the years and partnered with them on developing training materials. And then I was the state specialist for UW Extension for, I think it was 6 years. So I was all over the state and just about every shared use kitchen there was or is. And I did use the word was because several of them have closed due to lack of funding, basically, because it does get a little bit costly once you get it up and running. There's usually money to get it started, but those operating funds are hard to come by sometimes. And on the other side of it, I own a cherry orchard in Door County, and this all started because I needed a place to make jam. And I have a background in food science and nutrition from UW Stout. And so I lived in Menominee, love Chippewa Falls, by the way, for many years, for about 15 years.
Amazing. Incredible resume, Mary Pat. Like I said in my email, an expert panel on shared use kitchens would not be complete without you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Excellent. So I have some questions that I've written down, just in case we need a little bit of momentum. But first, I'll open it up to anyone on the call who would like to get their questions answered, because that's really what we're here for. Sherry, did you want to restate your question kind of from your introduction? I don't know if there was a question in there that you wanted to.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm happy to start it off. So really my question is twofold. If a farm or one of the entities that works with us gets a certified food processing facility, and I'm going to make that distinction because the kitchen implies different things to me than a food processing facility. And you want others to be able to use that. How do you go from a private to a shared? What kind of changes have to be made from a licensing perspective of the kitchen owner versus the people who might come in to do that work? Try to determine if elevating it to a shared kitchen is the right way to go, or just having the kitchen owner process and charge for processing. So I'd love to hear your comments.
Well, this is Mary Pat. I can jump in, but I'm sure Nicole will have some valuable information also. I've worked the Algoma kitchen, or the farm market kitchen, started out just as a facility that was available for rent by others, and everyone coming in had to have their own processing license. So we didn't do any custom processing at that point. So they would work with DATCAP and the UW Extension at the time, and get whatever required licenses they would need. They'd have to have a reinspection of the not only the equipment and the kitchen, but their process. And then the facility itself was reinspected to make sure that it met all the physical conditions of licensing. And all of that was basically managed by DATCAP. And at one point, there was some division between Department of Health and Department of Ag. It's a little bit more in line now than it was previously. And I have always found that both of those agencies, DATCAP, Department of Health, or your local inspectors, really are your best friends. They work with you. They're not there to try to shut you down. They try to help you figure out what will work best for you, and within the code, the food code itself. So when you rent it out to others, there's those legal conditions, the licensing, the insurance, and things like that. But there's also really the business component of it, which is making sure that everyone is protected, the owner of the property or the business that's going to be having someone come in. And I know that Food Forwarder has some good resources that you can access to obtain information about managing that. But the Wisconsin Department of Economic Development also has some resources on business development and business plans, and really the legalities of it are more complex on the business end than they are on the food processing end, because the food processing end has a very defined food code that you can flip to that page and you can see what the conditions are and the requirements are. And on the business side of it, you don't have that. You have maybe the Small Business Administration or your Economic Development Corp in your county, all of those local resources, but keeping the owner of the facility or the shared use kitchen and the other people that are using it safe, so that it doesn't get closed because of infractions of licensing or infractions of business. And it's happened every time. And everything that you can get in writing on the business end of it, like a contract or an agreement or a non-disclosure components, is critical. And then for a while, we switched at the incubator that I was managing in Algoma, and they started doing custom processing, which is, or co-packing, or whatever you want to call it. And that had its nightmares also, because you had to make sure that you had enough resources to do the production, that you had enough insurance to cover all the things that can go wrong, just the requirements for food safety and batch coding and traceability on product. Because if one thing has an issue, when you're in a shared use kitchen, it has the potential to affect everybody. And so whoever's managing that facility has to juggle a lot of hats. They have to know the food code, they have to know business, they have to know all the insurance requirements, and it's a learning process. And so that's why, unfortunately, I'd like to be retired, but a lot of places are still calling me back in and saying, we're working with DATCAP, we're working with Extension, we're working with Food Quarter, but we just need somebody with boots on the ground that knows our specific um, project. And the project or facility doesn't have to be big to produce a lot of food. It just has to be really well designed and really, really well organized. So that's my take on that. It's both of them have good and bad. Um, and sometimes I think it's easier to have um, the actual individual businesses do their processing initially until some of the kinks get worked out. If you've got a new shared use kitchen, and work as closely as you can with DATCAP and the Department of Health.
Okay. So Mary Pat is right. Each individual business would need to be licensed if they're the ones doing the production. One thing with shared kitchens is that, I mean, in some kitchens, anyway, as a rule, you have to be careful that there's not cross contact and cross contamination, and probably even more so with shared kitchens. Um, because you might be having different processes. Everyone is responsible for cleaning, but you're not individually responsible for them. So that is something to keep in mind. And there's also to note, in the same shared kitchen, you might have some businesses be licensed as retail, meaning that they sell mainly directly to individual consumers, whether it's at a farmer's market, whether they're doing catering or internet sales. Whereas you might have others having the food processing license. Now, there is a lot of overlap between those two licenses. Usually the retail license is actually stricter as far as equipment. The food retail license requires all the equipment be ANSI certified. That's things like NSF, Intertech, UHL. And then if you would do co-packing, you would be selling it back to them. So that would be a food processing type license. I guess an advantage of that would be if maybe a business isn't sure, how big it's going to be, and they're not interested in getting a license right away, especially for acidified foods. They might, prefer a co-packer rather than getting licensed themselves.
Can I ask a couple questions about that, Nicole?
Okay.
And thank you, Mary Pat. That was very, very helpful. If there's time, Grace, could I just kind of hone down that question?
Yeah, please do. I think this is important for everyone. Yep.
So let me just redefine the scenario. I think maybe pinpoint it. So in our situation, we're dealing specifically with minimally processed fruits and vegetables. So
Okay.
anybody that would come into these kitchens is only coming in to do minimally processed fruits and vegetables using the exact same equipment, often the same products. And so none of them are doing this as a business. They are doing this as crop harvests come in and they have overages, or maybe they have an event coming up. So I'll use the example of sliced carrots, right? I've got 5 tons of carrots, and I, as a farmer, figured I want to slice half of them, and I'm gonna sell them at market. Okay, so the choices are that the kitchen owner allows them to come in and use the processing kitchen on the days that he or she's not processing, right? That helps kind of cover the kitchen's available 3 days out of the week if somebody wants to come in and do that on a once or twice a year. The co-packing thing though piques my interest, because more likely than not, the kitchen owner would be there to help assist, and they would want the farmer to come in and help on that day with the prep work, right? If I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to charge you processing, but you come in and you help me for the day. So in each of those scenarios, do they both require that external farmer or whoever to be licensed in some way? One as I'm doing this on my own, or the other is I'm doing a co-packing. How do the licenses differ for both the farmer and the kitchen owner? Does that make sense?
So they're
Okay.
going to be, in the end, they're going to be selling it correctly, one way or the other. They're going to sell it.
Yes.
So then I'll drop that back to Nicole.
So yes, if they're going to be selling the product. So whole produce does not require a license to be sold. So if you're like selling, say, whole apples, just harvest cut fruits and vegetables, you do not need a license. However, once you slice it up, a license is needed. So if a farmer, whether or not they, I guess, consider themselves like a retail business is doing this, they would need a license to cut up and then sell at the farmer's market their produce.
And more than likely, they'd be packaging it into something if they're cutting it up. So
Right.
Bags, typically bags or clamshells. And when you say license, so again, I think once or twice a year, this isn't
Yeah.
an ongoing business model for them, but to come in and do that. Are you talking about a full shared kitchen license where they have to be inspected to do that? Or is there an in-between for those occasional jobs?
No, they
no.
would need to be licensed.
And the license isn't that, truthfully, is not that costly. I don't know what they are right now, Nicole, for if they were doing a food processing plant license, you're talking, right?
Right. So let's see what that is right now. Because for the retail license, it does vary with agent health counties. I know some of them do charge significantly more than the state. So I don't want to say what that would be and have people,
If
be
they got their own
disappointed.
license.
Right. So the food processing license, let me just pull that up. Okay. So if they're under 25,000 and they're not canning, it's $95.
Yeah, so it's very, very affordable, and it removes that risk of doing something that's basically illegal.
Right. Now, if it is a few times a year, and let's say, you as the kitchen owner are already licensed, depending on how much, maybe it would make, if you're already licensed to do that, maybe it would make more sense for you to co-pack for them.
Could you describe what the co-packing is, just so I understand? And is there a license for that?
Okay. So I mean, if you're already licensed, say you're licensed as a food processor, performing that service for them, could be part of your license. I mean,
And that requires meeting all the labeling conditions and storage conditions and all of those things, because my understanding is that most of the recalls done on food is because of improper labeling, for one thing, and then not storing properly. So all the conditions have to be met, no matter who's doing it.
I think I have a good sense of what might fit this scenario. So thank you both very much. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Haley, I wanted to put both the a link to the NIC and a link to the online version of the toolkit in the chat. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind introducing those resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, the food corridor has spent a lot of time and collaborated with USDA and worked on a lot of grants to develop tools that support the industry for free and help connect people who are doing this work. So the link that Grace just put in the chat, the Shared Kitchen Toolkit, is really the textbook on all things shared kitchen. So planning, launching, and managing a shared kitchen, it has all the things in it. We've just released an updated version that has a lot of examples and data, and I mean, there's chapters on really everything from funding to setting prices, marketing, and finding new members to use the kitchen. So that resource, I mean, it's just probably one of the number one things that we would guide people to if they're just looking for more information or have specific questions. So that one is really great. And then the other link in here is what we call the NIC. It stands for the Network for Incubator and Commissary Kitchens. So if you have a really specific niche question, I mean, even Sherry, the question that you had about, I mean, that question was maybe a little bit more related to licensing, but let's say you have sort of a nuanced question that's specific to your kitchen and how you're operating, and maybe it has to do with people you're working with, or you just want other people who've done it to weigh in. That is a private Facebook group of shared kitchen operators all across the country. So it's just people that do this work day to day and, ask questions, hey, how are things going? Any ideas on how to better market your kitchen, or I'm having this issue with a member. anybody have this experience before. So if you're just looking to connect with other kitchen operators and hear some boots on the ground experience, that group is really great, and it's super active group. People are really supportive, so I would encourage people to check that out too.
And
Thank
I'll
you.
add
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
that, Haley. Several,
Mhm.
because I still, I'm private consulting, so I've been working with probably right now 10 small businesses, 2 farmers, and
Mhm.
4 native tribes. But several of the kitchens that I'm working with do have subscribed to the food corridor resources, and they're very, very good. And then one of the other components of that that these kitchens can access is just tracking their users and tracking the finances and making sure they've got all their documents uploaded. And it's just very easy for managing the kitchen use itself. And it, because that does get very time consuming after a while, trying to book time and who's in there and who's not in there. And so it can all be done online, and it's a very good resource.
Mhm.
Sweet. Yeah, I do not own or operate a shared use commercial kitchen, but I've perused the Food Corridors website, and it truly does look like they have some resources that would be genuinely very useful in this process. Um, Dan, question for you. I've heard you say that one of the bigger mistakes you've seen is entrepreneurs spending a ton of time, energy, resources, money, um, prior to first testing the idea. And so I was hoping you could talk a little bit about kind of identifying product market fit, um, kind of the process that you find to be, or the way of thinking about bringing a product to market, creating a product that people are actually going to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, let me apologize if you can hear the pounding behind me. So, okay, excellent. Microsoft is doing its job today. Um, yeah, so a lot of what we focus on is working with entrepreneurs who have the idea of creating something, right? So creating a product. And where it usually starts, and like this is like the inspiration I think a lot of us have all had on the call, is like we all decided that we wanted to solve a problem that we were personally experiencing. And so and what we work with entrepreneurs through, and I think this is very true for not just for-profit entrepreneurs, but also for not-for-profit entrepreneurs, is like you identify the problem. And then, the next part of that process that we ask folks to think through is this a you problem, or is this a larger community problem, and how big is this problem? And so another way to think about that is like, how big is this market, right? So can I really leverage this problem, or can I organize this problem with a solution that's really going to fit the masses? And the way that we typically go about that, and we work with our entrepreneurs, is we go through the minimal viable product. And so we try to think about what the most ideal solution looks like. And then we say, if we had to pare it back to be the most simple, lowest form entry to test our theory of solving that, what does that look like? And so then we pair that with a process called design think. And so the reason that we do that is, number one, I think passion drives a lot of entrepreneurs, whether you're a social impact entrepreneur, doing a social impact project, or you're working on a for-profit. And it is really simple for us to be blinded by our passion. And, pragmatically, at the end of the day, everybody's got to pay their rent, pay their mortgage, and figure out how to make their project economically sustainable. And unfortunately, not all solutions are created equal. So, let me say that differently. Unfortunately, not all solutions have an economic need that are willing to be satisfied. So part of it is making sure that the entrepreneur doesn't go broke and can take his idea and take their idea and figure out how to make it more economically viable. So I don't know, is that helpful, Grace, in the context there, or would you like me to go into more specifics?
I think that's helpful. I would open it up to everyone else if they had any follow-ups on that.
I would say maybe the second part, and I tend to start thinking about the world through math. And so there's the pragmatism of finding the solution. I think the second part is understanding the unit economics of the solutions that we're doing. And it is my general contention when I say unit economics that most people don't understand what that means. And so, and an example might be, so I said like part of like what our goal is to work with entrepreneurs that, maybe, not necessarily our food cart entrepreneurs that are using like a shared or commercial space, but entrepreneurs that are maybe creating a product that could be packaged, right? And so setting aside the fund licensing and whatnot. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, so we were working with, actually, I have a more direct example here. We were working with an entrepreneur who was creating, I want to be respectful and not use the name, but creating a sauce to put on food, right? And so, we had worked with Hy-Vee to put it on their shelves. And so we got shelf space. We organized a bunch of the pieces from the kitchen to the Hy-Vee shelves. And at the end, they were selling I want to say like a small 8 or 10 ounce bottle for like $16. Well, number one, is the product so good that you've got a market that can support a $16 item on the shelf at Hy-Vee is kind of like the number one question that we had to ask the entrepreneur. And so we don't, by the way, make recommendations. We just ask the entrepreneur questions and let the market sort it out. But we kind of worked it all backwards, and because she started, I think, at selling it at like $7. Well, at $7, she wasn't really making any money. So she'd go to farmers markets and she'd sell the product there. And what we ultimately really discovered by doing the math here is that she did not have the time in the kitchen and create the volume of product to really meet and sell what she needed to do. And so we kind of worked through the math to figure out where they needed to go. And that was really hard to do. And again, like it was interesting for us because we found she found product market fit at a farmer's market selling her product, at a $9 range. She had a harder time at a higher price point in a commercial store. Right. So it could have been the venue and a bunch of other pieces. My biased opinion says that it's hard to want to spend $16 on a specialty sauce when you can buy, some Tabasco sauce pretty cheap, right? And there's not usually the draw there, which kind of goes into that product market fit. It was like, how strong is that draw to the next customer, or what does the competition look like? And do you have enough value that you can deliver there? Now, some people will always just buy local and support their local entrepreneur. That's a pretty small circle of folks, though. Most people shop on value. So hopefully I did not run on too long there, and that was a worthwhile example for the folks on the call.
Thank you. I think it's also important, and Mary Pat, you may be the best person to answer a question like this, but right now a lot of the folks on the call are in the design and planning phase or the middle of a construction phase of their kitchens. And so what sorts of things might they want to be thinking about in that stage of the process?
Well, having worked with a lot, not just in Wisconsin, but all over the United States, I've worked on projects. And I have found over the years that those are that in the design and planning phase, or in even the early development phase, that if they can take a look at the support services that they need and resources they need, and really start building relationships with those groups, whether it's inspectors, DATCAP, UW Extension, the university systems, the bankers, and really start working with them and building a resource, not just a resource file, but a resource relationship. Because what's going to be important going forward is to bring those resources in, even when you think you know the answer, and confirming what you're thinking. As far as planning for production and that, one of the first things that I always did, and I do when I work with a group or a new group, is I do a feasibility study. And I do that by doing an interest survey. And probably most kitchens that you are familiar with have done that. They've done an interest survey, even if it's like with the tribal groups I'm working with, it's a very small community number, but we made sure that we had the interest, that there was going to be somebody that was actually going to use it, or that we could, if it was the private group, that they had some businesses or farmers that were going to actually not just say they're going to use it, but actually use it. Then once you've got that interest service and feasibility done, then I do an economic impact study. And getting back to what Dan's kind of talking about, you have to see what's really going to make sense to produce or manufacture, or size wise. One of my companies became $1 million company and was recognized as the International Business Incubation um, um, Graduate of the Year, doing confectionery nuts. It was Notorious Nuts out of Green Bay. And they started out doing all sorts of things. And what they needed to do is, like Dan was saying, work those numbers back down and see what really makes sense. Do I need to be selling at farmers markets? Do I need to be running around the county, dropping things off all over the place? Or do I need to look at the larger markets that meet that? So sometimes identifying a local market and a regional market. And a regional market might not be right next door to where they are. You have to look around the country and see where is the best fit. And working with somebody that can really crunch numbers is really a great idea to begin with. Now, some people are only going to be doing, maybe a farmer like myself, I have cherries, I grow cherries. Maybe all I'm going to be doing is selling fresh cherries. So I have a real short time to get them into the market. I'm not really doing anything to them. And so before we start doing that, we did the same thing on a very local, very small scale. And I just think for new businesses, starting small, testing things and making sure the whole system is working. Even the kitchens that are designed, that I helped design, that can accommodate, like I helped the one in Madison get started. And down there, I worked with UW Extension and Greg Lawless and Andrew Bernhardt for a number of years. And they finally tossed the towel in and said, we're done. And a neighborhood group came and said, can you help us? And so I did the same thing for that little neighborhood group, interest survey, feasibility, economic impact study, and a business plan. Did the whole thing. And within a year and a half, they were starting to construct and build that kitchen down in Madison, which now has food trucks and, all sorts of things, caterers working out of it. But it struggles too, because the management is difficult. So starting small and then getting all those numbers in place. And because it doesn't do any good to have a client come in or a farmer come in and think, I was working with somebody from the Madison area, and honestly, they pickled everything that didn't move. So they had cases and cases of pickles. I never saw so many pickled things in my life, and they didn't have the market set up for it. So now they're sitting on hundreds of cases of pickled stuff, trying to figure out what to do with them. And they had put all this time and labor into it. We just kind of backed them back down to, let's just have a fire sale on some of these things and start over and do the crunching of the numbers.
Thank you. Anything related to working with contractors, construction teams, equipment vendors that you found particularly helpful? I know that you said at one point taking the time to really vet the people that you're working with and ensure that they have some level of experience or skill set or particular knowledge when it comes to constructing kitchens specifically, you felt was important. But was there anything that you wanted to say on that, since that's kind of where a lot of these projects are at right now?
Now is the more challenging time than I've ever experienced, just because we don't know where supplies and equipment access, what the supply chain will involve. And I'll let anybody else jump in that wants to, but I've tried to, when I'm working on newer projects, and if I can get a really good construction lead, but I bring everybody to the table at one point, not all the time, but I know it was going to take 7 meetings to get an answer, because there was plumbing questions or electrical questions or da-da-da-da. It was just going on and on and on, and zoning questions. And so I just had a meeting with all of them at the table. I put out a bunch of really good local food by some of the people that were hoping to use the facility. And if you feed them, they'll come. And so all of these people came to the meeting, and the construction guys and everybody. And within 2 hours, and when DATCAP was there, bankers were there, the insurance guy was there, the contractor was there. It took about 2 or 3 hours, and we had pretty much all of the issues worked out. And then I started working individually, but getting a really good lead contractor that understands what you're doing, because a lot of them just don't get what a shared use kitchen is. They don't quite grasp the concept. So you really need to make sure they get that.
That's great. Thank you. All right, with just 1 or 2 minutes left, are there any final comments from any of the guests today? I want to thank you so much for being here. I think that this was good conversation, and I'm glad to have it recorded to share out with the people that weren't able to make it. But if we want to just go around and kind of do a closing from everybody, any last thoughts? Haley, go ahead.
Yeah. Just on the last question about, kind of construction and facility stuff, there are a couple chapters in the toolkit that was linked earlier that kind of go over those things. But I guess I just wanted to, I'm going to post in the chat some other links and resources. I did want to plug we do an in-person shared kitchen summit. And this year it's in Cleveland, Ohio in November. So if anyone wants to spend time in person with some other shared kitchen operators, that's coming up. So, keep an eye out for that. And then if anyone is currently operating a shared kitchen, this is the last day that we're doing our 2025 kitchen operator survey. So if you have a couple minutes to complete that, that helps us gather information about where the state of the industry is, and we can share that, information back to you and help create resources with it. So I would just encourage everyone to check out all the links with resources, and maybe we'll see you at the summit. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Haley. And I'll be sure and send all these links in a follow-up email as well.
Can I just add a maybe future topic to this?
Please do.
And it's well, the state of the world right now, but finding good help to work in your kitchens, and what kind of besides a serve safe serve. I get them backwards all the time. Any suggestions? We've tried looking at the culinary programs in some of the local colleges. Difficult to find people. Any suggestions would be great. And what do we need to be concerned with for bringing people in, as far as again, licensing?
Thank you for that. Dan, anything that you wanted to wrap up with?
I mean, what I was gonna say is like, I have not had a chance to really learn a lot about the products, or hear what's going on here. So I'm actually really inspired to hear what folks are doing. Congratulations, Danielle. I think the last time I was on a call was with your current executive director. That'll be your previous. So congratulations there. I would say most importantly, those of us here at the Network for Health Technology and Innovation, we really just want to be a resource to support your entrepreneurial endeavors. And we really want to see you be successful. And, I think the number one thing I like to share with social impact entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs is like understand your numbers and where you're going to go. I think everybody on here has got terrific ideas and there's a real need. And the best thing that can be an outcome of it is like the long-term success of your product. So let's figure out how to make your product a long-term success.
Thank you. Mary Pat?
I'm appreciated the invite to participate today and hope I provided some information. And if anybody wants any follow-up, I'm sure our contact information will be on Grace's information she gets out. And I didn't hear anything come up about financing or funding these things, but that would be another good topic too. And I do have information on that.
And can I just get a show of thumbs from the guests on the call? Is it okay to share your contact information in that follow-up email? Or if there's something that okay. Okay, excellent. Nicole, anything that you wanted to wrap up with?
Just if you're not sure whether you or any of the individuals or businesses that you're working with need a food license, please contact us. We can let you know if you need a license and how to apply and what you need.
That is super helpful. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll wrap up. I'll end the recording and I'll have it out in an email with all of the rest of this information just as soon as we can get it posted to YouTube. Thanks again, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate the conversation and hopefully we'll stay in touch.
That's great. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.